All right, so today we're diving into a 2,000-year-old letter. Now, what's amazing is that it was written from a prison cell, but it contains some of the biggest, most expansive ideas you can imagine. It's the letter to the Colossians, and we're about to unpack its grand vision, its surprisingly practical advice, and the urgent problem it was actually written to solve. So here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into why this letter was so urgent in the first place. Then we get to the absolute heart of it, this truly cosmic idea. From there, we'll look at the specific shadows it was warning against, see how all these big ideas were supposed to change everyday life, and then wrap up with the personal notes that really remind you this was a real message between real people. You know, every important letter has a story behind it. So let's start with the basics. Who is writing this, and who are they writing to? The answer here is actually crucial because it totally explains the letter's intense and powerful tone. Okay, so right out of the gate, we meet the author, the Apostle Paul, and he's writing with his partner Timothy. And they're sending this message to a community of believers in a town called Colossae, which is in modern-day Turkey. But here's the wild part. Paul had never even met these people. He's writing to them purely based on a report he got from their founder, a guy named Epaphras, who apparently brought him some pretty worrying news. And this brings us to the absolute core of the letter. To solve whatever problem was happening in Colossae, Paul doesn't just offer a list of rules or a simple fix. Nope. Instead, he lays out one of the most powerful, kind of mind-bending ideas in the entire New Testament, the concept of the cosmic Christ. This line right here, this is the engine for the entire letter. It's not just a nice piece of poetry, it is the launch pad for a vision of Jesus that goes way beyond a historical figure and shoots right into the cosmic. This is the central claim that everything else is going to build on. And from that one single idea, Paul just unpacks this incredible list of claims. He argues Christ isn't just some teacher, but the creative force behind everything, the stuff you can see and the stuff you can't. He existed before anything else and is the very glue that holds the entire universe together. He's the ultimate authority, the one in whom the complete wholeness of God actually lives. So, what's the point of all this cosmic power? It all boils down to one huge concept: reconciliation. And listen, this isn't just about forgiving individual people. The letter makes this absolutely staggering claim that this cosmic figure's purpose is to repair the relationship between all of creation, literally everything in heaven and on earth, and God. So you have to be asking, why this incredibly intense cosmic theology, right? Why start with these gigantic ideas? Well, it's because Paul is using them as a direct answer to a very specific problem that was brewing in Colossae. He was combating a competing philosophy that he saw as a hollow and, frankly, dangerous distraction. And the warning here could not be more direct. Paul basically tells the Colossians, watch out, don't let anyone take you captive with these empty ideas that are just based on human traditions. He says they're rooted in the rudiments of the world, which is basically the elementary spiritual forces people thought governed the universe, instead of being rooted in Christ. And to make his point crystal clear, he uses this brilliant metaphor. He says that all these external rules, about what you can eat or drink or which holidays you have to keep, they're just a shadow. They might point to something real, sure, but they are not the real thing. The substance, the actual reality that is casting that shadow, he says, is Christ. He even seems to be mocking the slogans of this other philosophy, like he's quoting them back at them. Don't handle, don't taste, don't touch. He's making the point that, yeah, these rules might look wise and spiritual, but at the end of the day, they're just human commands about things that don't last. They're missing the whole point. Okay, so we've had this massive cosmic theological idea. The next big question is, so what? How does any of this actually play out in real life? This is where the letter pivots from theory to practice, arguing that if you really grasp who Christ is, it has to change literally everything about how you live. And he uses another powerful metaphor here. Changing your life is like changing your clothes. The author says to put off the old self, take off the anger, the malice, the dishonesty, and then put on the new self. Clothe yourself with things like mercy, kindness, humility, and forgiveness. And the belt that holds this whole new outfit together, the thing he calls the bond of perfectness, that's love.
And the result of putting on these new clothes is, well, it's absolutely radical. The letter claims this new way of living just obliterates the social, ethnic, and status divides that defined the ancient world. In this new community, labels like Greek or Jew, slave or free, they just don't matter anymore. The only identity that counts is the one they all share.
The letter then takes this new ethic and applies it directly to the standard Roman household. But you have to notice what's happening here. It doesn't just give orders to those with less power. No, every single instruction is matched with a command for the person in authority. Husbands are told to love, fathers don't provoke, and masters must be just and fair. I mean, in a world that was so rigidly hierarchical, this idea that everyone, top to bottom, was mutually accountable to God, that was revolutionary. And then, after all this grand theological instruction, the tone of the letter it shifts completely. It becomes deeply personal, with greetings and final words. It's such a crucial reminder that this wasn't some abstract essay. It was a real message between real people who cared about each other. The whole closing section is basically a series of personal shoutouts. We meet Tychicus, who's carrying the letter. We meet Onesimus, who we're told is actually from Colossae. We get mentions of other famous figures like Mark and Luke, who's called the beloved physician. And we even hear about Epaphras again, who's praised for how passionately he prays for his hometown. It just completely humanizes the letter and shows you the real tight-knit network of people behind it all.
And then there's this fascinating little instruction tucked away at the end. It says, hey, after you guys read this, make sure you pass it along to the church in the nearby town of Laodicea. This one little line shows that the author was convinced that the problem in Colossae wasn't unique and that this solution, this big cosmic vision, was meant for a wider audience from the very beginning.
The letter ends with a final, personal signature, probably written by Paul himself to prove it was authentic, and he makes one last request. Remember my bonds. It's just this powerful, vulnerable reminder that this entire cosmic vision, all these huge ideas, were written while he was literally in chains, and he closes with a simple, profound blessing. Grace be with you. So that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? We've just walked through a 2,000-year-old letter that was addressing a very specific local philosophy. So what does it mean for us to even consider its ideas today? How do we distinguish what's truly ultimate, what's the real substance, from what might just be a shadow in our own lives and in our own culture?